Good morning, Bitcoiners. Hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Not me. No way. Things are going great. Things are going great. Let's see what folks are saying in the chat. We got plenty of activity already. All are welcome on the Great Space Coaster. Indeed, where it lands is anybody's guess from JJ Fox, who's first up this morning. Good morning, Great Awakeners. Raise your mugs. The sun is up and Bitcoin is running 71,000 US trash tokens. We're at block 944,896. We'll be crossing into the 945,000 mark during this. No, not exactly. Pardon me. No. The 944,900 level blocks will be during this show. More Christians are posting their disgust at the horrible and evil Trump. How dare he? We'll be talking about Trump versus the Pope today. That's first up on our agenda. Jesus King, good morning, crew. Indeed, good morning. Strategy Buddy, billion US trash tokens worth of Bitcoin, 14,000 Bitcoin. Go back to your normal days, says JJ folks. Make damn sure you get and have your Bitcoin. Indeed, Soap Miner. Good morning, gang. Good morning, Soap Miner. Hope you're doing well. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. Corinthians, indeed. Thank you, Chef Zero. We love them. Lance 2002 says, happy Monday to you all, beautiful Bitcoiners. Indeed, blessed, beloved Bampians in the house. The gang is arriving. What a great Monday. C. Berger, good morning. Mondays are a great day to smash buy Bitcoin. Indeed, exactly. That's part of what makes for a happy Monday. Indeed, Chef Zero. 1 BTC equals 1 BTC. Revolutionary math. Charlosky, morning peeps. Hello, French fry. Been listening to Bob Dylan all night, says Shift Zero. 93 years young, 64 albums, 44,000 concerts. Wondered if Bob is a Bitcoiner. Yeah, hard to say. I was lucky enough to see him. He always does this really fun residency at the Beacon Theater in New York City during the week of American Thanksgiving. And I got to see him during that great Bitcoin run in 2017. It was a wonderful concert. I think he's been on the road every day since, except for COVID. That was the only time he wasn't. I had tickets in 2019, but I just got tired, and it was just after I had a big event. We did our huge, I just had interviewed Eric Weinstein on Bitcoin, and we had a kid's birthday party going on that I had to delay because of the event and all of those things. So it was that same weekend, and I was in the subway headed there, and I said, you know what? We had a newborn at home and stuff like that. I just couldn't go out to a concert with friends. I just wasn't in the mood. So one of the great things about when you have a newborn in the home, that it's like a day like today, in the sense that you don't have this obligation to go out. You can just say, well, we got the baby. And although I like going out and sticking to plans and being sociable and things like that, I do like heeding the call. I've always been notorious for the person who shows up at parties and things like that when I say I am. So it's not typical of me. I usually feel a great social obligation to be out and about and see what happens when you follow your synchronicity and going out and meeting people and having human collisions. So I try to always do that, but I feel a limited amount of pressure when there's a newborn in the house. So there you go. It's always an easy way to, cancel, I guess you could say. So we don't like canceling. Like I said, you should always go and meet your obligations socially, especially this day and age with the stupid cell phones and what they're doing to people's social lives. But I don't mind the baby excuse, the baby or the pregnant excuse. That's always a good one. And legit. And there's no better place than in your home when you got a little newborn. Bob Dylan influenced all the greats we grew up listening to and love. Yeah, no, he's pretty much the only music that I regularly let into my brain. I am a big Bob Dylan fan, and I've told you guys many times the story of when he published the Murder Most Foul song at the very beginning of the COVID lockdowns, and that was one of the greatest winks you've ever seen about Kennedy's assassination, and literally day one of lockdowns, and this 16-minute song got released. I encourage you all to go listen to the song and read the lyrics, because it really does tell like the history of that year and that time, and you can create a very interesting loop between, what was it, March 12th, March 13th, 2020, and just, I thought, a really fun coincidence, a really fun signal, eye wink, synchronicity, whatever you want to call it. It was a good time. Speaking of synchronicity and eye winks, I checked it out just as we said in the chat. The sun came up again, guys. Who could have predicted? And Bitcoin's running. We're doing great. Let's have a coffee, talk about what's new. And first, let us find out what's going on with the NPCs. He is so clever and has no problem breaking the rules. Yeah, Murder Most Foul, absolutely a masterpiece, just intense music history and poetry. Bob Dylan is a genius. He sure is, Chef Zero. He sure is. He sure is. I think of him as the greatest living American artist still to this day. Really hard to find anyone who transcends what he did. Now, the world's changing, so we got to have another one. It's not a good sign that he's the greatest living American artist. You want the next crop of artists to start showing up, but we'll get it. We'll get there. All right, let's share some NPC news with everyone for this Monday morning. I got some good ones here. I remembered to get them before. I'm not just going on some old ones. Where am I? Here, where is it? There we go. This is what we got, everyone. This is what we got. First up, colliding crises, guys. You're not going to believe it. Someone has to tell Bukele. I still have Bukele's contact, so I think I should show this to Bukele. Bukele did all that work to make El Salvador less violent, but what he didn't know was he didn't have to arrest anyone. He just had to sit and acknowledge that violence and climate change are shaping health in Latin America. He should have focused more on the climate change part. The locking up the violent people, maybe not so good. Look at this Mexico, violence and the hidden toll on women. It's hidden, guys. No one has seen it. It's just, I was talking to all the guys about Mexico, and all the guys were like, wow, it's so great. And it's not violent at all. But here you see, because it's so hot out, right? We luckily have Maria Garguilo with her dissertation research examining how underreporting obscures the true scale of the impact of violence on population health. So, you know, if it's so hot out, what the problem is, you don't get reporting of violence because it's too hot. And so that's one of the big problems we have here. One recent project, right, the underreporting of homicides of pregnant and postpartum women. You know, it's like, it's hot out, and I'm like, this fucking pregnant girl got murdered by a cartel, and now I have to go file a report. It's too hot. I can't file murder reports when it's this hot. It's mitigating the reporting, guys, right? Mexico's so-called war on drugs does not recognize a traditional humanitarian crisis, right? Of course not, right? Our research found that homicides of pregnant and postpartum women are not included in national maternal mortality statistics, in some cases exceeding other direct causes of death. Without counting these deaths, we underestimate the true burden, right? And just think about how hot it is, right? Here we go. Brazil, Guatemala, and Honduras. Climate stress, water insecurity, and mental health, guys. Colombia, extreme weather and the rise of dengue. This guy here knows all about dengue very clearly. He's the dengue expert. And he's letting you know, right, by revealing how violence, climate change, and extreme weather shape health across the region, right? The London School of Economics researchers are working across disciplines. Guys, a little hand for the researchers. They're working across disciplines. Right, they're like, it's hot out, and then you got to report the crimes, and it's like, oh, it's too hot, I can't write about the crimes. So there you go, we finally have it, right? We got evidence-backed approaches. Thank God. Thank God. But I got bad news for the people in Mexico. The super El Nino, right? You know, this could come to Mexico too, because it's hitting I suppose this is the country of Turkey. Very new spelling of it for me. Super El Nino could bring record heat to Turkey, experts say. Guys, Turkey is going to be hot. You're not going to believe it. Hot in Turkey. What? Unprecedented. It's a good day to go murder people. I'm not saying to go murder people, right? But if the trend holds from Mexico and you see a pregnant lady and you want to get away with a crime, no one's going to report it. No one cares. It's too hot, right? It's too hot. Here we go. Ski industry, all you guys in New Hampshire, your long winter. I keep hearing what a long winter it was, but the workers at the ski industry, go talk to those guys who are running the chairlift that all have missing pieces of their ears and nose. I don't know if that's a feature that Westerners really understand about East Coast lifelong chairlift operators. But the mountains I grew up on, every single one of the chairlift operators that have been working there for years had a little bit of a missing nose or ear. It's one of those stories I tell to people down in the Caribbean that they can't believe it, that it's very typical in my area to meet old timers that have just missing body parts, missing fingers, missing toes, missing ears, nose, all kinds of stuff. And because of the cold, right? So, but now apparently they're really worried. They're really worried about climate change. It's too hot, I guess, for skiing in New Hampshire this year. Bitcoin Deb is in the house. El Debo here. It's going to be so hot in New Hampshire today. The winter has ended. We had nothing but snow last week. It's ending. Guys, everyone in New Hampshire is so worried. Oh, we got new news, though. New hope. I'm not just here to warn you about super El Ninos and it being too hot to report postpartum murders and about how the ski industry is going to end in New Hampshire and how everyone's stressed about it. No. I got answers for you guys. These fall into the world of the mollusk answers and all the data we have on our 45 million years of data. Here with tiny particles, guys, in Arctic ponds may play a role in cloud formation and climate change. Guys, science, these two chicks went down to the Arctic ponds and they found, you're not going to believe it, tiny particles. Here's what we know. Tiny particles bubbling up from the tops of melting sea ice in the Arctic sky may be a key understudied element of cloud formation. Guys, we found these little particles and they're in the ice in the Arctic. It's all going to be done. We finally cracked the code. Super El Nino, watch out. If you're out there committing murders today because of how hot it is, you don't know. These chicks have found tiny particles bubbling to the top of melting sea ice. It's going to change your whole world. How melt ponds seed Arctic clouds. Guys, cloud seeding. It's not from the airplanes. It's not the chemtrails. It's ice nucleating particles, guys. Ice nucleating particles. The ponds. That's what's going on. We get this too, guys. I don't know. We got other problems though. Climate change is outpacing evolution, guys. It's the climate is changing too quick. Evolution can't keep up, right? But scientists luckily are using DNA. Can't you picture them? Put some DNA in there. Let's go, evolution. Come on, we got to beat climate change. It's a race. It's a race against climate change. Fire up the DNA. We got to catch up. The DNA boosters. We need to outpace it. Evolution is losing. We're not going to win. It's too hot. Everyone's dying. I got some good health news too. Guys. Thank God we have the scientists here. Doctors exposing buffalo hump, guys. So if you have a giant, that's what a buffalo hump is. You see these people that have a giant thing of fat on their back. You're not going to believe it, guys. It's a potential sign of hidden health conditions. Guys, if you have a buffalo hump, it's not good. If you didn't know, now we know, finally we know that having a big chunk of fat on your back is actually bad for you. I was unsure. I was pretty sure that the fatty bulge at the base of the neck, commonly known as a buffalo hump, right, it's not just cosmetic, guys. It's not just that it looks bad, right? It could mean you have some health problems, okay? Thank God. Now, I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they didn't have enough research yet, and they got to do more. We need more experts to weigh in. We need more of a consensus here, because I'm not totally sure yet, but apparently anyway, a buffalo hump, not good, not good. Now you know. Now you know. Guys, we got voter registration. 1 second. I don't know what's up. Okay, I'm gonna end this screen share for a second. I think I might have to get rid of stop these pages. Chef Zero, they just had 3 feet of powder. No. Climate change. Just give me a second. This is, I think, computer processing troubles. That's what you're experiencing. But we're almost out of the trouble here, I think. Our favorite Mac chips, which don't work. It's a scam. You can run a billion million tabs on the new Mac chips, guys. Don't worry. Check it out, bros. No problem. No problemo. Let me see how it's doing. There we go. There we go. I'm back. All right, we're going to screen share again if I can. Here we go. And we get this, guys, check it out. Gun manufacturers won the ultimate legal shield. Big oil wants that too, guys. Gun manufacturers, you're not going to believe what legal shield they won. It's called the Second Amendment from the U.S. Constitution. And now, can you believe that big oil also wants a constitutional protection? Can you believe it? New York Times. Oh my goodness. Oh, and I got some great ones from Canada here. This is what we got from Canada. Globe and Mail, reluctant to rough it. You know, everyone's talking about all these troubles in Canada, how bad things are in Canada. Everyone's saying, oh, is Canada going to make it? Is Canada going to fail? What's the future of Canada? Canada looks like it's becoming dystopian. We're going to talk about Canada today. People saying Canada has become a real shithole country. And here the Globe and Mail finally getting to the bottom of it. Look at how bad things are in Canada. Reluctant to rough it, retirees are trimming travel costs in other ways. Guys, watch this. Let me read it to you. Kelly and Brenda Robinson are adjusting to the rising cost of their travel in retirement. The Calgary couple has noticed higher prices eating to their annual trip to Europe and their stay in a small community outside of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where they have a second home for the winter. Guys, this year's trip is more expensive than last year's trip. Prices are not slowing down. And Mrs. Robinson, 64, a retired banker, of their plans to travel to France and Italy. It's busy out there. And you notice when booking, Mr. Robinson said they plan to travel comfortably, looking for centrally located hotels, direct flights, and seat upgrades for long flights. But the couple is planning to spend 3 to 4 weeks in Europe this year compared to 5 to 6 weeks in previous years. Geez, guys, I didn't know it was that bad in Canada. Imagine these boomers have to cut their European travel down from a month and a half to just a month. Just a month. Canada getting extremely bad, everyone. Right. And then they're still looking right well in advance. They got to do their research before now. They got to do their research. They have to do their own research months and weeks in advance for their flights and hotels. I don't know if they can make it, guys. This ain't good. This ain't good for them. I got this one too. Pretty funny one. We got this one here. Strat News Global. U.S. naval blockade of Iran could spark retaliation, guys. Experts warn, guys. Iran might retaliate. They might retaliate. Thank you, experts. We needed that. We needed to know what was going on with all of those things. You're going to hear a lot more experts today. Trump has started a feud with the Pope. We're going to talk about that first up today. It's some pretty funny stuff. We like the Pope feud storyline. It's a pretty good one. So here you go. First of all, Trump came out with this Truth Social post saying, Pope Leo is weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. He talks about fear of the Trump administration, but doesn't mention the fear that the Catholic Church and other Christian organizations had during COVID when they were arresting priests, ministers, and everybody else for holding church services, even when going outside and being 10 and even 20 feet apart. I like his brother Louis much better than I like him because Louis is all MAGA. He gets it, and Leo doesn't. I don't want a pope who thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. I don't want a pope who thinks it's terrible that America attacked Venezuela, a country that is sending massive amounts of drugs into the United States, and even worse, emptying their prisons, including murderers, drug dealers, and killers into our country. And I don't want a pope who criticizes the president of the United States because I'm doing exactly what I was elected in a landslide to do, setting record low numbers in crime and creating the greatest stock market in history. Leo should be thankful because, as everyone knows, he was a shocking surprise. He wasn't on any list to be the Pope and was put there by the church because he was an American, and they thought that that would be the best way to deal with President Donald J. Trump. If I wasn't in the White House, Leo wouldn't be in the Vatican. Unfortunately, Leo's weak on crime, weak on nuclear weapons, does not sit well with me, nor does the fact that he meets with Obama sympathizers like David Axelrod, a loser from the left, and who is one of those who wanted churchgoers and clerics to be arrested. Leo should get his act together as Pope, use common sense, stop catering to the radical left, and focus on being a great Pope, not a politician. It's hurting him badly. And even more importantly, it's hurting the Catholic Church, President Donald J. Trump. So everyone talking about that note this morning. Here's Trump adding to the conversation that he had and the Truth Social post that he put up. Really powerful stuff by Trump. Directly in Trump theater, as we love to cover it. It's Trump theater. We got more Trump theater here. Here's him adding to what he said, another bit to the Truth Social post.
I don't think he's doing a very good job. He likes crime, I guess. He hit us. Think of it. He's worried about fear. What about the fear when the ministers and the priests and all of those great people that were arrested during COVID, and in many cases they're outside 10 feet apart and they were arrested. So we don't like it. We don't like a pope that's going to say that it's okay to have a nuclear weapon. We don't want a pope that says crime is okay in our cities. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of Pope Leo. He's a very liberal person, and he's a man that doesn't believe in stopping crime. He's a man that doesn't think that we should be toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon so they can blow up the world. No, I'm not a fan of Pope Leo.
Why did you attack Pope Leo on Truth Social?
So Trump theater again, Trump using his typical system of gathering attention and getting people to repeat his talking points, debate his talking points. This is Trump theater all the way, more of the wrestling style, pick a fight, pick a enemy, start talking it up, get them to change their tune a little bit. Cernovich had a really great take on the Pope. He says, if the Pope wants to talk politics, then his views are to be evaluated by the same level as anyone's. His Twitter account was Reddit tier shit liberalism, gun control advocate, COVID vaccine promoter, all kinds of these crazy ideas. That's why you've got this kind of civil war going on in the Pope still in the Vatican still to this day. But it's another one of these instances where Trump is using Trump theater and using his typical way of gathering attention and focusing a debate onto a critical issue in order to, I think, really start changing and manifesting change in the world. And this is just another one of those Trump attacks on World War II consensus mechanisms. And this, in this case, the Catholic Church much older than World War II consensus mechanisms. But the Catholic Church has been criticized for most of its history, so it's not a new thing, but it's especially used to criticize, or it's especially useful to criticize it during these huge times of change, because the Catholic Church can often be a laggard. It hasn't always been a laggard when it comes to change. Different parts of its history, you'll see it ascend and let's say integrate the zeitgeist and integrate the overall directionally true the direction of change can be something it embraces from time to time. But it's why I count it in this World War II consensus change whiteboard that I've got. And the World War II consensus, although there isn't a church in this, you can still put the church into this institution, even though here we're talking about government and banking. But it's also part of communications and guns and security and all those issues. Markets, of course, the Vatican Bank, as we've heard many times, is one of the big aspects of this institutional change. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze. So we've been hearing the Vatican and the Vatican Bank as another one of these, just like the City of London, another one of these institutions that is part of this global change. So you can interpret this fight with the Pope as part of this attack that Trump has been undertaking with the Strait of Hormuz, with Iran, not so much on Iran itself, or in this case, not so much the Vatican itself, but the power structures behind them, the World War II consensus version of reality, which exists outside of these institutions and behind these institutions. And so when you think of what Trump is doing here and the way he's focusing attention and concentrating people's opinions on the Vatican and creating a lightning rod out of the Vatican, you can see that Trump is doing his trick again, where he's manifesting change and destabilizing this World War II consensus in ways that only Trump really can. And that's why when you think of all of these institutions changing at once, Trump using Trump theater in order to change them, why it's important to consider this note that Trump gave last week on Friday at the end of all of the festivities of what we've been seeing going on. He says, world's most powerful reset. And that's really what this World War II consensus model is about. It's about altering this entire framework for reality. And it's a contrast in resets, right? We're going to talk about the contrast in resets because the world is resetting and there's multiple belligerents trying to win World War III, which is a psychological and economic war. And so Trump had a great play over the weekend, as many people have noticed, and that's the Hormuz trade blockade that he started. The Strait of Hormuz American blockade has begun. And we're seeing now that this was a very powerful lever to pull for a great reset, something we've been predicting on this show for a long time. I told you almost for a whole month now. I think I started reporting that Trump wants the Strait of Hormuz closed deliberately from about mid-March until now. And now we're starting to see, again, not just Trump being seen as right, people actually seeing George Lucas and the Phantom Menace storyline as correct and interesting. I've been saying this for 25 years. I was a big fan of the Phantom Menace, pretty much from when it came out. I never really slandered it. I didn't love parts of it. I immediately loved the Phantom Edit, though, if you ever have a chance to see the Phantom Edit, which downplays a lot of Jar Jar Binks and adds a few features and is a very well-edited version of the movie. Here, lots of folks saying, we owe George Lucas an apology. When he released episode 1, we complained that the blockading trade routes was a terribly weak plot for a Star Wars conflict. Here we are, smack in the middle of 2026, arguing over trade route blockades. Indeed, it is time. People saying, I'm sorry, George, pretty crazy how important a blockade of a trade route is right now. So people not just coming around to seeing that Trump is smart, coming around to seeing that George Lucas and The Phantom Menace was actually a good movie. So that's good news. So everyone picking up on it today. And you can see Trump theater and its value and importance to change people's opinions Even Joe Rogan saying it just the other day about how important Trump is in his negotiating style. So you have to think of that negotiating style when you think of what Trump is doing with the Pope, and even what we saw last week with bombing Iran into the Stone Age and all the kinds of results that is finally bringing people, because indeed it is a psychological and economic war. And you can see these levers being pulled by Trump and how important they are. Here's Joe Rogan seeing much the same thing. Joe Rogan and Donald Trump, who had a bit of a moment this weekend. Trump showed up at the UFC in Miami and had a good hug with, let me see if I can find that clip for you guys. Trump. So Trump had another triumphant entrance into the ring. Here, I'll show you Trump going to see all of these folks, and share this tab. And you'll see in a moment, there's Trump coming in, having a good time, meeting with Joe Rogan again, having a good handshake and chatting about God knows what. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Chemistry is always good. And you see Joe Rogan here talking about Trump's negotiating style and why it's so important and why it is an important factor here as we switch from the World War II consensus to something else that I think of as the Nakamoto consensus.
The quote about Trump, or the narrative about Trump, has always been that he's bullshitting everybody, that he's a con man. He's definitely very persuasive. Scott Adams has wrote about this pretty much in depth about how well Trump practices the art of persuasion. The art of the deal. He's great at making people his friend and making relationships. And if you're his enemy, fuck you, scorched earth. It's like this. And there's fear of that. You don't want to get on his bad side. There's all this there's this art of how he negotiates, and it's gone through this years and years and years of business. But that's him. That's the guy's right there. You could talk to him about everything and anything. He's right there. He's not protecting any of his ideas. He called a girl he allegedly slept with horseface when he was the president on Twitter.
It's so funny.
It's the wildest shit. So you're getting what you get. That's who the guy is, and I like him. I've grown to like him. I had a much more negative opinion of him back in the day because it was. There's only so much you can pay attention to and do deep dives on before you lose your fucking mind. And with him, I was always like, oh, that guy, they grab him by the pussy guy. It's probably not good for the country. That seems crazy. But as time went on, I was like, oh, you need a guy that is completely crazy to expose how corrupt the whole system is and how they all collude together and how they all say this. There's all these montages of clips of news organizations saying the same narrative outright, over and over, verbatim, word by word. They're getting fed this by someone, some entity, they're somehow or another they're collaborating. And they're all choosing this very specific narrative, and they're running with it, and they're trying to destroy people with it. And I saw them do it with me. I saw them do it with me.
So you're seeing exactly this. This is the Trump change reality frame that I've been talking about for a long time, that Trump has this ability to change not just a political opinion, not just a political framework, but the entire underpinnings of reality. That's what the World War II consensus was. That's why Trump going against these institutions the way he is, all of them at once, seemingly. He's going against the church, the banks, the trade routes, all of it simultaneous, domestic political issues. And you're seeing people definitely recognize what Trump is doing with this kind of leverage. You're looking at Trump going after the Strait of Hormuz and what it's meant for oil flows. Here's Trump again using his intense negotiating tactics in order to get leverage over that. You can hear him talking about this push for global peace that he's got right now, and the plan that he's had from the beginning, which was to be able to supply oil to folks in the Strait of Hormuz as the American blockade begins.
I would say it's holding well. Their military is destroyed. Their whole Navy is.
You know how the audio is coming through on this. Not great. It's low on the actual video, though.
Most of their mine droppers are gone. We have a lot of people, as you know, at 10 o'clock tomorrow, we have a blockade going into effect. That'll be 10 o'clock tomorrow. Other nations are working so that Iran will not be able to sell oil, and that would be very effective. But what we want to do is we want to, and again, we don't need it. What we notice and what we see and what I think is maybe my idea, maybe not, I don't know. But there are many boats heading toward our country to fill up with oil and then go and take it. So they're not going to go through the Hormuz Strait. And ultimately that'll be corrected. But in the meantime, they're using us. We have more oil because of drill, baby, drill. We have more oil than Russia and Saudi Arabia put together. So if you look at Russia and Saudi Arabia, two big ones, we have much more oil than they have put together. And what's happening is boats are coming over here, filling up. We don't have to go through the Hormuz Strait.
And everyone yesterday talking about the traffic going on in the Strait of Hormuz, just how many ships are there right now, what the global fleet looks like here. Trump knew this would happen. Changed my mind. You can see this thread of boats headed over to the Gulf of America. And indeed, you got to look at what people said just a while ago. Remember when all the people said Trump wasted time on the Panama Canal and that he wasted time on Greenland and these other issues? You're seeing now why this Strait of Hormuz gives him so much leverage. And again, you've got to put it in the context of what's coming with China, a big participant in this changing system, and how China reacts to it, how China and America interact, how they relate to each other commercially is really important, because many people believe the old world system, the World War II consensus, wanted conflict between China and America in order to subvert either of their abilities to win a race in political systems. And I do believe there is a real healthy competition. That's not a war, but is just a contrast in political systems. But it does give Trump a lot of leverage over China. People seeing it now, blocking the Strait of Hormuz with the support of Oman and other Gulf nations may have two objectives. One, block Iran's exports and inflow of hard currency. Two, make China force Iran to negotiate in realistic terms, being a strategic partner of Iran and the most impacted of any shutdown. The reason to do that now and not before, this may be because 80% of the crude supply to the Strait of Hormuz has already been replaced or rerouted, as the J Bull Market rightly pointed out in the post below. So the impact on supply and demand for most OPEC Plus partners and customers is as small as possible, with the highest negative impact for the Iranian regime. Furthermore, OPEC has already agreed to lift quotas by exactly the amount of Iran exports. So what I've been telling you from day one about all of this, and was that Trump wanted the Strait of Hormuz closed. They were increasing capacity. I did the math in the first days about how much OPEC was releasing, how much strategic reserves were being released. I said, we can do this for months pretty much. And it looks like the Saudis managed to get their pipeline going pretty strong. So you can go to the Red Sea now to extract a lot of it. I think about, like they said here, 80% of the crude supply out of the Hormuz has already been replaced. So it looks like there'll definitely be some local troubles. We're seeing them in Ireland. We're seeing them in New Zealand. We'll see them in a few other places around the world. But most of the big markets are going to be able to get their oil, and we're not sitting on any form of catastrophic global meltdown because of energy. And here again, and even go back to the, as Bitcoiners, we always have to have the reflex of pricing things in a inflation controlled adjustment method. So going back to the 1970s oil shock, if you take the oil prices back then, which were about $150 a barrel, the equivalent today is more like $500 a barrel. We never got anywhere near that. We didn't even get back to the 1970s prices for the oil shock. So we're very well positioned to go through this oil shock. It's going to be hard to tell that to some people probably in Sri Lanka and other places, in Ireland and other places like that, because some people are definitely going to be going without. But it's spring. We should be okay. Sightbringer here talking again about the tankers headed around the Cape of Good Hope in Africa and headed straight across the Atlantic into America. Sightbringer saying Trump has just restructured the global oil market in 48 hours, and most people haven't realized it yet. Step back from the Iran negotiations entirely. Look at what actually happened in sequence. Here he says the U.S. destroyed Iran's military, killed its supreme leader, sent Vance to make an offer everyone knew Iran couldn't accept in one session, declared a naval blockade the moment talks failed, started clearing mines, escorted non-Iranian traffic through the strait, blocked Iranian ports, and now hundreds of super tankers are converging on the US Gulf Coast to load American crude. That's not a war. That's not a negotiation. That's a hostile takeover of the global energy order. That's the frame you've been getting here from the very beginning. Nothing to do with Iran. Iran is just another one of the pawns, small chess piece in the board. But the implications for the larger chess pieces, the queen and the king, and whatever we're talking about here, in terms of World War II consensus breaking down and the leverage needed to break it down, is becoming more and more obvious. Iran doesn't just lose its military and its leader, it lost its market share permanently. The tankers rushing to the Gulf Coast are not coming back to Iranian ports when this is over. They're building new supply chains that route through Houston and Yanbu instead of Karg Island. Those relationships, those contracts, those logistic networks, once they form, they don't reverse just because a ceasefire gets signed. The real winner here is American energy, not just for this quarter, structurally. Trump just forced the global tanker fleet to reorient around U.S. exports. He created a supply crisis and then positioned American producers as the solution. Whether he planned it that way or stumbled into it doesn't matter. The outcome is the same. The U.S. share of global oil trade just expanded permanently at Iran's expense. And like he said, it doesn't matter whether it was deliberate or not. I tend to believe it was deliberate, but doesn't matter. As we know, he who controls the spice controls the universe. The famous quote, of course, from Dune, and again, why the Star Wars analogies are important. And seeing here that the City of London piece remains an important one. Brian Cates says, Trump just played the Trump card. He just laid it down on the table, and they are staring at the mounting horror. If you understand that Tehran was always a proxy regime for the City of London conglomerate, you will see who Trump is really negotiating with. It ain't really the LARPing assholes in Iran. He's negotiating with the people who control Tehran from the shadows. The transnational crime syndicate of big club oligarch family pirates are not laughing at him or mocking him any longer. They're watching a 100-plus year paradigm they've kept the world trapped in collapsing before their eyes. He just literally took control of their biggest world energy choke point away from them, and there's nothing they can do about it. Again, when people laugh that Trump was accidentally fell into this or had no plan. Remember the whole no plan? He has no plan, the no plan stuff. Oh, he's just a madman, right? Why didn't they plan for Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz? Batya Ungur Sargon says, congratulations. If you said this, you played a crucial role in the op, indeed. And the underestimating of Trump's ability to see this stuff ahead of time is completely ridiculous. And now look what it does to the Middle East and why day one, my story was that the Abraham Accords are holding, and that goes back to February 28th, I don't know, March 1st at the very latest. And here we're seeing Zineb Rubuya come up with that exact frame. The Arab world is watching a different war. 3 reasons why it has been difficult to understand the Arab position. The first is the Arab relationship with Iran. From the vantage point of Brussels or London, Iran presents itself as a resistance movement with a grievance against American hegemony and Israeli occupation. And this presentation maps comfortably onto familiar Western anti-colonial frameworks. This is a very useful insight into the psychological war that is getting flipped around in World War III here as these institutions are changing and as Trump is using Trump theater to leverage all of this change at once. You're seeing here why the psychological aspects that underpin the Western interpretation of this and the London-based interpretation of this, the transatlantic interpretation of this, the World War II consensus interpretation of what's going on, why it is so heavily threatened by this pulling of the economic and psychological levers here, because the Arab Accords, the Abraham Accords coming out of this is, like I said, one of the most important features. What it does not map into is the lived experience of Arab populations in Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, Bahrain, Syria, and across the Gulf. In those countries, Iran's presence meant Hezbollah holding the Lebanese state hostage to Tehran's decisions, 35 armed factions in Iraq drawing salaries from Iranian funds channeled through the Iraqi National Treasury, and Houthi commanders answering to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps while firing on Arab civilians from Yemeni soil. Freedom is not the word any serious Arab observer would use for what Iran brought. Indeed, the Arab world's quarrel with Iran runs deeper than American bases or Israeli airstrikes. What drives it is the systemic subversion of Arab sovereignty by a foreign power that uses the language of Islamic solidarity as cover for an imperial project conducted through proxies. The second dimension is the proxy question itself. Where Western analysis fails most comprehensively, Iran goes far beyond supporting armed groups. Parallel state structures get built inside Arab countries, financial systems get captured, and political figures get installed who owe their existence and survival entirely to Tehran. The Iranians who have administered this project understand it as the export of a revolution, but what Arab populations have experienced is closer to a colonial occupation conducted through intermediaries, and as of now, they're not mourning the Islamic Republic. When Westerners treat these proxy networks as instruments of legitimate resistance rather than as mechanisms of subjugation, they endorse an imperial project while believing themselves to be opposing one, and as a matter of fact, make themselves the legitimizing force behind Iran's war against the Arab world. The third dimension is the most counterintuitive for a Western audience, and it is the most consequential for how the current war is understood and misunderstood. For Arab nationalists, including secular nationalists and even those with deep reservations about Israeli policy, Iran represents a greater and more immediate threat than Israel does. This is a position that Western media are structurally ill-equipped to render intelligible because Western discourse on the Middle East has been organized for decades around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as the primary axis of regional injustice. That's exactly what I've been talking about the World War II consensus breaking down, that the Israel question and the entire theater that the City of London used, the pro-Israel, anti-Israel, fake prison of two ideas, the fake binary that's been going on forever, is the trap itself, and breaking that trap. And that's why the Abraham Accords holding are such an important story, because they break this fake prison of two ideas trap. They allow us to see the world in not just a more nuanced way, but in a way that allows us to see that the reality altering leverage that Trump is using, that the reality altering framework, fits my model here of the fake prison of two ideas, and what shaking the box and creating these new economic incentives, creating these new economic relationships that show the Saudi Arabia integrating with Israel, integrating with America, and identifying the enemy, which is a commercial one, which was why the exit here with Bitcoin is so important, that you're not stuck in this cathedral, as they call it, of institutions that had you see the world in that fake binary. And that's why the Western media has had so much trouble interpreting what's going on. Here we see indeed that the result is that when Western governments and Western publics take strong positions against Israel's actions or against Iran's operations, they believe themselves to be standing with the Arab world. In reality, they are advancing a position that the Arab world does not share and has not asked for, while ignoring the threat that Arab governments and Arab populations actually live with. The rhetorical use of Israel as a perpetual alibi for Iranian aggression has been one of the Islamic Republic's most durable tools, and Western opinion has served as the unwitting amplifier of that tool across the entire duration of the Islamic Republic's existence, which is exactly why I have that as the Israel question as the number one example of the fake prison of two ideas, and why this framework to understand the World War II consensus melting down under these conditions is so important, because the Arab question, the Israel Arab world question, was the fake prison of two ideas. When it comes to this, it was the World War II consensus. It was a reality. And that's what's getting broken here very powerfully, and in a way that underlines when Trump goes on and says that we're in a global reset, that's what he means, right? That's the meaning of this global reset piece. And again, to bring it back to China for a second, here's Trump discussing the Chinese question, and how you can see this is really about sovereign nations having competition now to define the future. And it isn't really about falling into what's supposed to be the next chapter of this World War II consensus, which is America versus China, why it's just not materializing. I love the Chinese entrepreneurship right now. I love all of these cool products coming out of China, and I want to be able to buy them. I want Americans and Chinese to integrate in many interesting ways that are possible. And I think we're going to get there. And here's Trump talking about how he respects China, and why the oil question is giving Trump leverage to actually not even engage in this fake World War III, this mimetic fake World War III from the World War II cathedral that they're trying to create, and why all of these questions about the Pope and all of these institutions changing so quickly, and why the economic leverage Trump is gaining in the Middle East can actually lead to a complete and total altering of reality around the world.
As far as China is concerned, China can send their ships to us. China can send their ships to Venezuela. We told them, buy from Venezuela. We have a lot of overcapacity. We'd sell them, and we'll probably sell it for even less money. I have a very good relationship with President Xi of China, and we work together very well. They're paying us substantial money, as you know. We've never got money before. You know, I listened to this Gordon Chang. He has no idea what he's talking about. We have been very tough on China, tough but fair. And, you know, it's an amazing place. But I have a very good relationship with China. And
that's what you want to hear.
During my, you know, I put tremendous tariffs. I put 100% tariff on all Chinese cars coming in, and that's destroying Europe. They're destroying Europe because they're taking away so much business from Mercedes and BMW, etc. And we don't have any Chinese cars in our country because they would have destroyed General Motors, Ford. They would have destroyed these companies if they did it. So I put 100% tariff on, and in all fairness to Biden, he allowed it to stay on, which is shocking to me.
Right.
It's one of the things, it's about the only thing he did good, but he allowed it to stay. So we don't have the problem that they have, you know.
So that's what you want to hear. You don't want China and America escalating. Now, again, it's important to think of these economic levers being pulled. Here's that great body language guy saying, I honestly thought this map was made up. Hundreds of super tankers, the kind that carry 2 million barrels each, are currently racing towards the U.S. You're seeing all of this leverage change. Meanwhile, China, which has been getting 45% of its oil imports from Hormuz, paying basement prices for sanctioned Iranian crude, and is now competing with Japan and Europe for the same expensive American barrels. Chinese manufacturers are already raising prices 20% on goods headed to that part of the world. This is either the most elaborate coincidence in the history of geopolitics, or someone planned the sequence: Venezuela, Iran, profits. I'll let you figure out which one. It was an accident. He's such an idiot. And indeed, you got to remember what all of these fake influencers have been telling you on the internet about Iran. America's losing. What are we doing? It's all foreign stuff. No, this is all domestic as well. It's turning back on the domestic agenda. Here are the influencers who told you that Trump had no idea what he was doing, and closing the Strait of Hormuz would destroy America. As always, it was the opposite. Trump had a plan. After the deal with Iran is locked in, oil prices will drop lower than pre-war because the risk premium from Iran's saber rattling will be removed from pricing. There will be a peace accord backed by all regional parties, with likely a new government or moderate faction of the current one. The midterms, gas will be cheaper than ever before. Where did you hear that? Here, day one. Day one. That's what we said. Day one. The gas is going to get cheaper in the long run. Will the influencers admit Trump was smarter than them? You know the answer indeed. 1 second. And, you know, just so that we can see these trends, you remember it was around this time last year that the Israel running Trump faction and that fight really got going. And people are pointing out today this Ian Carroll tweet from last year here on the end of March. The RFK Jr. blackmail story is breaking from multiple angles right now. He says it's bad, even worse than I say in this video. Blackmail by certain people at the highest levels of American politics right now in 2025. Buckle up, it's about to get weird. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened like that. Nothing ever happened. RFK is still running Maha. I don't see any Israel leverage on him. Now, the trouble in Israel, the part that's real, is about Netanyahu. Netanyahu is in big trouble. His political career is over. I think that despite all the crazy shit that Tucker has done over the past few weeks, or months even, and that we noticed right away when he started talking about Bitcoin last December, that it could be shut down by the CIA. When Tucker said, oh, it could be shut down by the CIA. Oh, my goodness. Now, the part where Tucker was right was that excellent reporting he did on Netanyahu just a few weeks ago with the Adelsons and everyone on camera showing that there was a blackmail ring. We can't deny that blackmail is one of the main reasons why all of this stuff works. You saw from Eric Swalwell this weekend, blackmail is the prerequisite for a lot of folks in that system, especially the World War II system. So The work Tucker Carlson did on Netanyahu, I think very appropriate. And again, my frame for Israel is not that it controls America. My frame for Israel is that it was controlled and created by London in order to create this fake prison of two ideas, to divide everyone on the Middle East in terms of pro-Israel, anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, anti-Palestine. That was the fake prison of two ideas. That's melting. The World War II consensus melting along with it. And that Israel, because it was a fake country and was mostly theater, mostly designed to get people to worry about the Holocaust and worry about this and that, Israel is one of the most psychologically manipulated countries in the world. And the division inside of Israel is the same division you're going to find in America, but even more acute, without a MAGA, a little more like Canada, which is sort of leading in the same trends as far as which places are the most psychologically abused countries in the world. Canada and Israel right at the top of the list. And the divisions that you see in Canada and Israel are similar and different from America. They're similar to each other and different from America, in that in America, you have something like MAGA. You have something like a populist movement that isn't the fake prison of the right, which is what brings me back to my original support of Trump back in 2015, when I saw Justin Trudeau getting created in Canada and the end of the Harper government. And I said, we're not equipped to fight this World War III psychological economic war, which led me straight into Bitcoin. But because I saw Trump, when I saw him with the murders and the Mexican rapist speech when he launched his campaign in 2015, I said, this could actually work, because I could see that the levers he was pulling would eventually change reality. And along with Bitcoin, those were the two levers that I saw as being useful to change this entire conversation. It has nothing to do with Israel. Israel is as weak as Canada. Israel can't do anything. They're completely gummed up by all the psychological warfare. These people are completely abused in every possible way. And it's why I think they're going to enjoy the golden age more than anyone, and why they need a lot of political change there, which is why I think Trump is basically giving Israel over to the Saudis. I think if you see what Saudi Arabia said and MBS said, let me see if I can find I don't think I have that thing here, but let me get it for you, because when you see Mohammed bin Salman and what he said about Israel and Iran just this weekend, and a phone call that he had with Trump. So he was encouraging Trump to go further and keep up the pressure in Iran, and making numerous, here it is, yeah. It was easy to find, making numerous appeals to what is going on with this war and what it means for Israel. Why I do believe, and I think you're going to see this, guys, whereas Israel needed this, Balfour Declaration was created by the British, and of course had America as a great ally over the past couple of years. Why you're going to see the most important ally of Israel going forward is going to be Saudi Arabia. I think in many ways, Saudi Arabia is going to take control of Israel and be a great steward of it, a great steward. I think they're going to let all religions flow. I think you're getting the three-state solution. I think when all of this World War III stuff is really, truly over towards the end of Trump's first term, you're going to hear an announcement about a Christian state within Gaza, a small one around Bethlehem, nothing huge, no huge taking of territory, anything like that. But I do predict that part of the peace deal here is that the Christians will have their own little portion, and that Saudi, because of commercial ties, is going to be more or less the patron of Israel going forward, which is insane to say, but this is what happens when you change reality and you change these consensus mechanisms. And here's what I think is setting that up. Here's MBS speaking to the situation in Iran, saying the following, from Saudi Prince MBS changed Trump's decision at the last minute. President Trump had intended to declare a complete ceasefire and end the fighting against Iran in exchange for the immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz. However, a tense phone call with MBS dramatically changed the plan. According to the White House sources, bin Salman begged Trump not to stop the war. This is a historic opportunity. We must finish the job and weaken the Iranian regime once and for all. In exchange for continuing the fighting, Saudi Arabia offered an unprecedented package of economic and strategic incentives. 100 billion US trash tokens transferred directly to finance American war costs. Full and immediate normalization with Israel after the fall of the regime. Direct oil pipeline from Saudi Arabia to the port of Ashdod, turning Israel into a major energy hub. Investment of approximately $1 trillion US trash tokens in the US economy. Purchase of 500 billion US trash tokens in American weapons. Establishment of a new regional defense alliance, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, and other moderate countries under an American umbrella. Joint naval force to control the Strait of Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb. Funding of strategic U.S. bases in Israel. Joint reconstruction fund for a post-regime secular and moderate Iran. In the end, Trump announced a temporary ceasefire, not an end to the war as was expected. Senior diplomatic sources describe the move as a historic turning point, marking the beginning of a new regional order. Again, I think that the story around MBS and Saudi Arabia is going to and Israel is going to have a very, very happy ending, which is why Trump sending in Vance was also very smart. So we saw the weekend Vance try to negotiate this. This is ultimately going to keep Trump's coalition in America together. Sending Vance to negotiate with the Islamic leaders of Iran is another one of President Trump's masterstrokes. With JD witnessing Iran's rejection of the world's most basic demands, Trump neutered the entire woke, non-interventionalist wing of his own administration, Tulsi included. So again, I think we can get rid of this whole question. And here's emergent perspective with, I think, an important factor here. And this is what we've been doing as Bitcoiners, understanding this conflict and analyzing it. It's the vector math. Geopolitics requires vector math. People ask me, how do you get this right? How did you guess? How did you predict that we would pivot back to Epstein and all that stuff? It's not a crystal ball or anything. It's just incentives. It's narratives. It's like when you're sitting and watching a movie and you say, oh, I know what's going to happen next. That's all it is. It's not that you're guessing out of thin air. It's that you have this ability to understand the vector math, to understand the impact of decisions. And this story is just one of them. All of the ships coming into the Gulf of America, even the setup with the Gulf of America, hilarious, right? Now, the vector math is important as we consider the implications of the World War II consensus changing, because it has implications. Like I said, the vector math of Iran heads right back to the city of London and all of these European outposts. And this story here from Hungary has a lot of people worried. Of course, Viktor Orban, Trump's greatest ally in Europe, lost his election bid yesterday after 16 years. He's out. He's been in since 2010. He is gone. Elon Musk sounding the alarm here, saying that Hungary has fallen to Soros. Right-wing PM Viktor Orban has lost the national election, and Alex Soros, son of George Soros, is celebrating. Elon says Soros organization has taken over Hungary. The people will regret this. Now, again, people saying, well, this is a big hiccup for Trump in this World War III change, or even getting the blob giving their little prayers here, according to Mike Benz, saying how the blob says grace before devouring a meal. Hungary has chosen Europe. Europe has always chosen Hungary. A country reclaims its European path. The union grows stronger. Hungary has chosen Europe. Europe has always chosen Hungary. A country returns to its European path. The union goes stronger. So repeating the same mantra twice. But the truth about what's going on over there is not exactly that. I don't think it's the big win. You're seeing all these people, the big contrast. This is more fake prison of two ideas. Look at the trend here and look at what's going on. So here, first of all, people saying they've chosen the democracy and gotten rid of autocracy. Orban was just voted out democratically and conceded. Meanwhile, countries like France, Germany, Romania ban opposition candidates from running, kill them in the case of the AfD in Germany, cancel elections, and surveil parties for extremism if they oppose immigration. So it keeps the contrast up. It also shows that the rest of Europe is also changing. But the bigger story, I think, about Orban is that he was corrupt as shit. Apparently his administration was garbage. A Hungarian friend, very right-wing, told me 2 weeks ago that Orban was going to lose. According to him, it was next-level corruption in Hungary. A lot of inside baseball I won't repeat, but I don't see today as a globalist win as much as a reminder of not being a hog. And I'll even go further. It looks like the new guy who won, this fella, although he's got some bad history about him as far as, I guess, maybe some wife beating. So I'm not going to go ahead and say he's a good guy. I don't know if the wife beating claims are real. There was a community note. I had a tweet today saved that showed his wife beating past, but it got community noted, so I took it down. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know much about this guy. I don't know much about Hungary, to be honest. But seeing him here and reading this, so it turns out he's actually from the same party as. So this guy's actually from the same party as Orban. He broke away. He used to be a lieutenant to Orban in the same party, but broke away because of the corruption. So again, that would reiterate what Cernovich is saying. And this fella here, Augustin Antonetti, saying the following: I'll tell you everything you need to know about Hungary's new prime minister. Who is he and what are Peter Magyar's ideas? So Magyar is a conservative liberal, so not a far left woke guy, sort of a center left, which I think the world needs more of. Former member of the same party as Orban, but he resigned due to all the corruption cases within the party. Immigration against European Union policies, in favor of maintaining the border fence on the campaign trail. He said, "We choose the Hungarian people and we don't want immigrants." I'd even say he's tougher than Orban on these issues. Economic, pro-market, liberal, in favor of lowering taxes, reducing the power of the state. Geopolitics, anti-Putin. But when it comes to Ukraine, he thinks very similarly. Remember, they both come from the same party. Social, he's anti-woke. In fact, he has presented programs to prioritize the Hungarian family and increase the birth rate. Defense plans to raise military spending to 5% of GDP by 2035. So probably not the big globalist win that you're hearing other people say out there. It looks like you're going to see, I think, someone who is probably going to become a good ally to Trump. Looks like if the wife beating stuff isn't true and he's on a mental case wife beater, then, but I don't know about, maybe it is true. I don't know. Wasn't able to confirm before we went live today. We'll definitely be following it, but I could see this guy becoming an ally to Trump if that's the case. Martin Varsavsky saying Peter Magyar is not the anti-Orban. He is running on a platform that is Orban without the corruption. Just as I said, Orban Magyar opposes EU migration pact. He voted against the loan to Ukraine. He wants strong borders and has no plans to reverse Hungary's energy ties with Russia before 2035. On every substantive question that defines the European left-right divide, Magyar sits exactly where Orban sits. What he promises to change is governance, not ideology, anti-corruption reforms, rule of law, meritocratic appointments, unlocking frozen EU funds. A voter who backed Orban for border security and national sovereignty can vote for Magyar without abandoning a single conviction. The only thing that voter has to abandon is tolerance for theft. Orban did not lose the argument. He lost the trust. That seems reasonable to me. So I do imagine that is what's happening. But again, go back to what I was saying about the rest of Europe. So while you got the EU people trying to celebrate today, my argument is that what has started in Hungary is actually happening everywhere else, and that Europe is starting to see this huge change. And what we saw this weekend in Ireland is another example. National strike tomorrow. So it ended up, I think, fizzling out a bit, but you're seeing the end and of the patience of the Irish people. You had Conor McGregor running quite a bit of it, and Sightbringer saying this government is done. The timeline is the only question. So I've been predicting big change in Europe. It's not, they might get one minor victory if you squint and ignore everything, which I don't think the Hungary thing is a win for the pro City of London gang. I don't think it's a win for the World War II consensus gang. I don't think it's a win for American liberals or European liberals or anything like that. I think it is probably a new Trump ally, just in a new skin, occupying the center left portion of the question, which is completely abdicated territory with most of the extremism that we see, extreme leftism on European Union side. So the extreme leftism is what continues to lose. They did not win yesterday. And if you look at what's going on in Ireland, it looks like the extreme left, again, losing here too. The World War II consensus proponents losing here too. Sightbringer making the call now. Sightbringer, who was really ahead on Iran and a few of these other cases. reiterating here, the government has done, the timeline is the only question. The 505 euro trash token package, million euro trash token package, was the government's best move, and it was irrelevant within hours. That tells you something fundamental about where the energy is. The money was calibrated to end a fuel protest, but by Sunday evening, this isn't even a fuel protest anymore. McGregor calling for dissolution of the Dail Sinn Féin, tabling no confidence. A national strike called for Monday morning. 3 simultaneous vectors aimed at the same target. Remember, it's vector math that you need, right? That's what Bitcoiners are able to do. 3 simultaneous vectors aimed at the same target. The government is trying to put out a fire that has already moved to a different building. Dail 34 will be dissolved. He named the parliament by number. That's a political objective stated plainly by someone with much more reach than every Irish media outlet combined. The government has no counter to this. They can't outspend it because the demands have moved past money. They can't discredit him because he's more popular than any of them. They can't ignore him because the entire country is reading it. The real thing nobody wants to say, the liberal democratic model of governance assumes that the people who run the physical economy will always keep running it regardless of what policies get imposed on them. Ireland just proved that assumption wrong in 6 days. The administrative class governs at the pleasure of the productive class, not the other way around. That truth has been obscured for decades by complexity, by financialization, by the comfortable distance between policy and consequence. The Iran war closed that distance overnight. Diesel went up by 70%, and suddenly the relationship between the people who make decisions and the people who drive trucks became very simple and very clear. What happens tomorrow depends on turnout. If shops actually close and streets actually fill, Martin is governing a country that has already moved on without him. With no confidence vote becomes a formality, not because the numbers flip, but because the legitimacy is already gone. You can't govern people who have stopped consenting to be governed by you. That's what Ireland looks like right now. And you're seeing this across the board. It's happening as well in France. France has joined Ireland in launching blockades. Citizens across Europe are rising up against their communist governments. They've had enough. Ireland led the way. Now the continent is waking up. Major FAFO incoming. So that's happening in France. And we also see that the French question and this whole energy supply, going back to Trump here and seeing what he's up to, you can see this proxy war about the city of London and about the Strait of Hormuz and the implications in Europe, the implications in America, in China, all of these places, very real. Here you can see the proxy war against them becoming really easy to focus on, and you're seeing what Trump is actually fighting against. This is the World War II consensus. This is the model we've been talking about for a while. This is the economics. This is when Trump's fighting against the institutions, when he's fighting against the Pope, when he's fighting against these policies. You see them all in this model, and you can see it all here, that the energy supply, its extraction and its movement by water, mass migration, we're seeing that's the big question in Europe, worldwide drug trade, international central banking. He's taking all 4 away from them for the last year. He's accelerating. And you're over there blackpilling about the Jews. Their proxy state in Israel goes last for a reason. When the history books are written about how Trump utterly and artfully gutted the City of London conglomerate in less than 2 years, you goobers screeching, he has owned by the Jews, won't even be a footnote. And that's what I believe. These 4 things here are the actual issue. They are the World War II consensus. This is what reality was. It's why I made the graph this way. You can see security, migration, communications, markets, energy, banks. Those were the pillars of the World War II consensus reality, and it's changing that quickly. Here you can see Promethean Action, and another great video on this reset and what it means. Let me make sure I get the audio, so I'm going to re-share it so you can see it clearly. Barbara Boyd here with a really great take. And now this is a contrast in this global reset and what it means for Trump to be going against these central bankers and all of these things, because they had their own reset in mind. And that's really what the fight of World War III is about. It's about the fake prison of two ideas, the World War II consensus, and will it perpetuate? Will it mutate into this global green energy scam, or will it turn into a productive American system taking over?
The old Great Reset, because you need to understand what Trump is dismantling before you can understand what he's building. The World Economic Forum's Great Reset wasn't a conspiracy theory. Klaus Schwab said it out loud in public in June of 2020. COVID, he declared, was a narrow window of opportunity to remake capitalism.
For the post-Corona era, we have a choice to remain passive, which would lead to the amplification of many of the trends we see today.
This is while George Floyd.
Polarization, nationalism, racism, and ultimately increased social unrest and conflicts. But we have another choice. We can build a new social contract, particularly integrating the next generation. We can change our behavior to be in harmony with nature again. And we can make sure that the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution are best utilized to provide us with better lives. In short, we need a great reset. We have to mobilize all constituents of our global society to work together. We must not miss this unique window of opportunity.
Did you hear that? COVID was an opportunity. Earlier in the speech, you said that COVID had shown a lack of social cohesion caused by nationalists and racists. In other words, those who are refusing to comply with insane lockdown mandates. I don't know about you, but that speech still stands my hair on end. Under the Great Reset, energy had to be rationed and controlled. Carbon had to be taxed and strangled. Every sovereign nation was supposed to surrender to globalist institutions who no one elected. Prince Charles, now the King, joined Schwab in announcing the Great Reset. Current Canadian Prime Minister and Trump hater Mark Carney was moved from the Bank of England to UN climate czar. He created a net zero carbon finance regime, the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero.
So go back, you can actually see my video during the truckers protest. The day Mark Carney promoted the idea of declaring the Emergencies Act, martial law, to go after the bank accounts of those giving money to protesters, making me a terrorist in Canada. The day he did that, I did a video for Bitcoin Magazine and I laughed. I said, do you know that this guy, so first of all, he was like, duh, guys, very simple. We can just do this. We just go after their money. Duh, it's so easy. He wrote a big op-ed under his own name. I said that day that he will go down as the world's greatest financial loser. And I did the math that he had this GFANS, they call it, $130 trillion allocated under his name, and it all fell apart. And it already was close to falling apart by 2022. And it was down to like 80 trillion. And it's totally gone now. That's why he has to have this stupid job as the Prime Minister of Canada, a fake country that's on its way out. And so here he is, here she is describing how he did become the biggest financial loser. I told you that in 2022.
Controlling an estimated 130 trillion in assets and aiming to police and control all global credit. Who profited from this? Well, the City of London's banks and insurers did. An independent academic study from the University of Manchester confirms this. Green finance became British industrial policy, run through what the author calls the City Bank Treasury Nexus, designed to preserve the City of London's financial dominance, not save the planet. Main Street America, workers, manufacturers, small businesses, farmers, all get strangled when energy prices surge or when the supply is unreliable. For 4 years under Biden, it was the policy, the pipeline shutdowns, the drilling restrictions, the war on American natural gas, the record inflation, the loss of energy independence. All of it flowed from that Great Reset blueprint. Trump's energy reset is a mirror image. Drill, build, export. Let American energy flood the world market, drive down prices, and make every nation that wants cheap power an American partner rather than a hostage of the global establishment. But that means free and open use of places like the Strait of Hormuz without constant threats of terrorist disruption and the resulting artificial price hikes from London's commodities markets. Which brings us to today. Were Venezuela and now Iran only about corrupt terrorist regimes, or is something much more fundamental going on, like rewiring the entire global financial system to accommodate Trump's American economic renaissance? Is that what Trump is talking about when he writes world's most powerful reset? I'm about to tell you about that. But
so that looks like what's happening, and it is a race, right? Trump is doing his reset, and you get here in Canada. This is a few blocks from me. I thought about going to prank them, but you had the Liberal Party of Canada. I saw all the delegates around this weekend, and it's a few blocks from my place here. So Mark Carney was in town. I saw his motorcade. I thought about going to do some content there, but these people are too fucked up. I don't want to integrate and talk with them. It's just not going to be worth my time. But here's just like Gavin Newsom's wife, right? They do this thing where their eyes are really open and their neck is all tense. Here she is saying one of the funniest things you'll ever say here, first of all, about the World War II consensus. She says, she starts talking about her husband's speech in Davos, saying that I've heard university students are reading it. University students. Who's going to university? What are you talking about? Here she is talking about what is a competition. This is the actual fault line of World War III. It's Trump against Carney. It's why I believe Trump chose Carney as the leader of Canada in order to have this contrast.
Break of Canada being the nation that is helping to define and shape a new world order.
Go for it, Diana. You can do it. You can do it. But it's that persuasion versus Trump. And just look at what we got here. You've got American Debunk saying, some people still don't understand how Trump can say we won while still negotiating with Iran. I'm about to change the way you view Trump forever. I've been waiting to break this down for a while. It's obvious Trump practices what's called New Thought. New Thought is basically the idea that you can bend reality with your words and thoughts. You've heard of affirmations? Good. Let's keep going. In the framework of New Thought, Trump is actively practicing its central principle of affirmative prayer and declaration. You remember that Trump was the student and was at the pew every Sunday with Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. That was his pastor as a kid. The guy who wrote the book, The Power of Positive Thinking. There's even still a statue to him, Norman Vincent Peale. I'll find it. In Manhattan, still to this day, here you can see the statue right outside of the church. I think it's somewhere on 34th and 5th or something. It's right in Midtown. It's a great location. And here it is. You can see it. There's Norman Vincent Peale. This was Trump's actual pastor. Here you can see that smiley-faced countenance, right? We're used to seeing Trump do that kind of stuff. All kinds of people make pilgrimages to it. This is really the beginning of the self-help literature in America, all those things. And there it is. The Norman Vincent Peale. Had to stop by the Norman Vincent Peale statue outside of, I forget exactly where, but I've seen it. I've walked past it before. So you're seeing this power of positive thinking and Trump's use of it in persuasion. He learned like that. That's why you're seeing the top skill level here. Just look at his background and look at what he learned to get to where he is. And this is his childhood in a nutshell. So when you're wondering about Trump's rhetoric and why it's so over the top and why it's so, where he got all the skills to be a World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment Hall of Famer, it's from stuff like this. This is what makes him the P.T. Barnum of the George Washingtons of American history, and why I think he's going to become regarded as a refounding father for completing the revolution against this City of London aspect, the City of London piece that we never really got rid of during the Revolutionary War, or at least we got rid of for a while, but didn't completely get rid of it. And now we're there, about to fully get rid of it and win World War III, right? Even while negotiations remain ongoing, Trump is treating the outcome as an already accomplished reality rather than a pending material fact. This is Trump doing his think past the sale again as well. This is when Trump, for example, was building the wall and in the first campaign would say, and Mexico is going to pay for it. You got people arguing whether or not Mexico was going to pay for the wall, not whether or not there would be a wall built. That's a very powerful way he framed it and went further. It's what he does with Canada. It's why you can see this technique with Canada. And with Canada, he actually, the poker face that he has breaks for a moment when he does the Canada situation. When Trump is doing the Canadian persuasion about Carney, and he comes out and he says, because no one in Canada, because the media is bought and paid for, no one wants to talk about the Chinese manipulation question, the Chinese deals that Carney's making and what it means for the future of Canada. And so when Trump comes out and he uses this style of persuasion, he enters the frame. It's the thinking past the sale frame. He comes in and he says, they're going to get rid of it'll be the end of Canada if this deal with China goes through. We're not going to let the cars in. It's going to be a big problem. They're destroying the car industry. We're not going to let them do it because they're going to destroy Canada. And then he goes further and he says, they're going to take away all of what makes you Canada. They're going to take away your ice hockey. And he kind of grinned when he said it the first time, because you knew what he was doing was just picking the most incendiary thing, because what it causes is the reaction among Canadians, which is true. He can't stop hockey, right? But it makes you think what China can stop. And that's the whole purpose. It gets you to speak about what level of China influence in Canada is appropriate. While it's true he can't stop hockey, but it gets a lot of people to say, what can he stop? And that's what makes it so persuasive. It went from no one even talking about it to everybody talking about how much China can actually influence Canada. So that's what makes this version of persuasion so powerful. That's why Trump always sort of mirrors this classic new thought affirmations, and why spoken commands issue the intelligence, the infinite intelligence, or universal mind. Trump does not plead or hope, but instead declares the desired result as true. We won 100% of the time. He's aligning personal consciousness with divine law and activating the law of attraction to draw victory into tangible form. American debunk, you're insane. Look at your life. Compare it to Trump's. Now keep reading. By refusing to dwell on the still negotiating appearances and instead voicing the triumphant end state with unwavering conviction, Trump embodies new thought teachings that right thinking and authoritative word reshape circumstances, dissolve obstacles, and manifest prosperity or success exactly as the mind commands. Trump is proving once again that the new thought terms, it is not the outer conditions that rule, but the inner declaration that creates the world. It's the mind and your words. The past 10 years is loaded with examples of Trump doing this same thing. Let Trump cook. And again, that's what this altering shift of the World War II consensus and why changing reality is really what we're talking about here. This is the fight he's involved in, and this is what he's taking on. And this is why changing all of these elements really does change reality. And that's what's being changed before our eyes by this proxy fight that he's got, and the fight that he's on against these folks, and why it is so important. And indeed, just a second here. Yeah. So changing reality itself, right? And again, go back to Canada and why they're stuck and mired with these, eloquent speeches by Carney, while they're trying to just favor these boomers and their fifth and sixth weeks having to rough it by not going for the extra time in Europe, why it's falling so flat. And of course, they always reveal themselves at the convention this weekend in Canada. They, of course, agreed to ban social media accounts for Canadians under 16 years old, a frat saying all countries in lockstep, global agendas, show your papers culture. They went even further now. They've got their military commander predicting global war. Here she is predicting global war and whether Canada is ready for it. This is some pretty funny stuff.
We need to understand
We need
that
to, Steve Moronic up talks
post Cold War, we were asked to do different types of missions. So,
do it.
So militaries equip and structure themselves to respond to specific types of missions. So we were most of the time asked to do missions in an expeditionary fashion, in a very specific theater of operation, within limited objectives. So then you organize, structure, equip yourself to be to deliver this type of mission. But the world has changed, as you mentioned, and we live it on a daily basis. We're now looking at the Ukraine's lessons learned, Russian behavior, and other of their collaborators.
So here's her other solution here. This is some really good stuff. Here she says that her big job as the leader of the Canadian military was to remove systemic barriers and be the first women in a role. And she identified the biggest obstacles were perception that women are weak and can't be in a combat role and be a mother at the same time. Yes, that's exactly what Canada needs, is more women fighters. That'll be the answer. And just to see how screwed Canada is, here the Ethics and Public Policy Center says a quarter of all Ontario medical assistants and dying providers may have violated the criminal code. But who cares? It's so stupid. It's a bit of murder. Whatever. It's fine. It's fine. Don't sweat it. Just some murder. We're fine with that. Here's Canada, I think, showing you what side of the question they're on. Here's the famous speech from Joe Biden that all half Americans were terrorists, everything in blood red and dark soldiers in the background, and all the red backgrounds you see from Mark Carney this weekend, and looks like the Chinese New World Order, looks like the Keir Starmer New World Order. And Canada just losing across the board. Of course, here you see 40% of Canadians who would rank in Canada's top 1% of earners have emigrated to the US, along with 30 to 50% of the next 9%. This is from the Bank of Canada, and you wonder why they're discussing an exit visa. That was the big question over the weekend, was this exit visa that they were talking about. Now they had another one of these boomers saying that Canadians should pay a 500,000 Canadian trash token exit tax, and Liberals loved it. It was a big video over the weekend that everyone was talking about. It's hilarious. I will play it for you here. Here you see this fella here, Patrick Pichette, VP of Google, saying that he lives in Europe, saying that if Canadians want to work in Canada and America, they should pay $500,000. It's classic stuff. And they adopted it this weekend, so it's now their policy.
And on the other side of it, let me give a bit of a sober on the protect side. So let me give you a few facts. In Canada, the minute you have your degree, if it's a professional degree, right, there's something in the Canada kind of free trade agreement. I got the wrong acronym, but you get it. It's called the TN program. So Microsoft, I finished from University of Waterloo with my computer degree. Microsoft phones me, offers me a job, 300 grand a year, right? All I have to do is show up at the border, apply for a TN visa, right? And I get this 3-year, like no questions asked. It costs $30. And now I move to Microsoft. We as Canadians have subsidized my education to the tune of, you pick the number, $500,000, right? 500,000. And if it's a graduate student, go up, right? 30,000 TN go to the US every year. You want to save yourself $5 to $10 billion? Shut the TN program and then keep them in, or make them pay their $500,000 so that if
the funniest thing about how fucking stupid this guy is that it has nothing to do with Canada. It's the Americans who give it to you. It's the Americans who give it to you. So I think Trump, if they pull this, again, this is why Trump chose this Mark Carney fella. I think he just needs to do what I think he's going to do, which is just offer productive Canadians who already have a track record of tax paying in the US, of American residency, of integration into the American system. All those people are just going to get, because what can Canada say about it? It's American sovereignty that's at question here. It's nothing to do with Canada. They can just say, okay, well, now you're all on. So the TN visa is not like the H-1B visas. It doesn't count towards citizenship. So I couldn't count any of the time that I spent in Canada as citizenship. I don't get a green card. It's not a green card vehicle. all he would have to do is plug Canadians into the green card system, and all of this would just be devastating for Canada, and this guy's big plan would fall apart. This same guy who clearly benefited from it doesn't even live in Canada. It's just perfect, and it's more boomers telling Canadians what to do. So reality is coming for Canada. Canada does not survive this. I keep telling you that, but it is over. It's finished. There's no way fucknuts like this are going to win this fight. These guys are the same ones laughing that Trump didn't know what was going on with the Strait of Hormuz. Oh, he's just a crazy person. It's little pukes like this, little pinheads like this that create this problem. And he works for fucking Microsoft, Google. Okay, buddy, let's go. It's not going to work out for him. And that's why the brain drain is not going to stop in Canada. So that's the good news indeed. That is the good news indeed. So there you go. So getting back to the Great Reset question, I want to play the next clip here from the Promethean action, because it's a question of systems that are now coming into place. And here you can see Hamilton's revenge, the American system returns, why this is important, why people moving, why going after this top level human capital and undermining Canada is next in the cards, because it's part of this American Revolution that never really was completed, because we let something like the British Empire stay on the shores of America, which led to the fake division that went into the Civil War. It went into the fake division that we still see in American society today, and why this is the next target for this American Revolution.
James Thorne is the chief market strategist at Wellington Altus, one of Canada's largest private wealth firms. In his April briefing, he said that Trump's moves in Venezuela and Iran have a motive nobody is talking about: re-anchoring global energy and money in the dollar system for the next 50 years. He calls it Bretton Woods 2.0. He's right about Trump's motives, but he's wrong when he says Trump's model is the petrodollar looting system created by Wall Street and the City of London in 1971. And he's wrong when he says Trump is playing a new great game, the operating system for the British Empire. Trump is using the American system of Hamilton, Lincoln, and McKinley based on constant scientific and technological progress. Thorne says China's exploitation of Iran and Venezuela's black market and sanctioned oil gave China an unfair economic advantage. He also notes that China's investments in Iran's energy and defense infrastructure and in the Middle East and Latin America generally challenged U.S. interests. Iran is an anchor in China's Belt and Road revolution of global transportation. The bridges and infrastructure Trump is threatening to bomb include significant Chinese capital investments. All of that is true. But Trump is not out to destroy China or go to war with it. And China's investments include billions in Gulf nations and Israel, allies of the United States, attacked by Iran. Venezuela wasn't just about oil, it was about knocking out a key financial and logistics center for the drug trade. And here's Trump late yesterday talking about Iran.
What would a good deal look like for you?
No nuclear weapon, number one. You know, I think it's already been regime change, but we never had that as a criteria. No nuclear weapon. That's 99% of it.
Strait of Hormuz as well?
Yeah, but that'll open up automatically. The answer is yes, but the strait will open up. If we just left, the strait's going to, otherwise they make no money. So the strait's going to open, but what we have is no nuclear weapon, but we'll open the strait anyway. Don't forget, we don't use the strait. Other countries use the strait. So we do have other countries coming up, and they'll help out, but we don't use it. It won't be easy. It won't be, I would say this, we will have that open fairly soon.
And here is what Trump's national defense strategy says about China. The Indo-Pacific will soon make up more than half of the global economy. The American people's security, freedom, and prosperity are therefore directly linked to our ability to trade and engage from a position of strength in the Indo-Pacific. Were China, or anyone else for that matter, to dominate this broad and crucial region, it would be able to effectively veto Americans' access to the world center of economic gravity, with enduring implications for our nation's prospects, and I'm underlining this, including our ability to reindustrialize. A favorable balance of power in the Indo-Pacific is not for purposes of dominating, humiliating, or strangling China. It is simply to ensure that neither China nor anyone else can dominate us or our allies. This does not require regime change or some other existential struggle. In other words, two different civilizations in a race to define the future for the next 50 years. A race, not a war. Not just that, look who's involved now in the Iran talks. Pakistan, China, Turkey, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. All of them are members of Trump's Board of Peace with the exception of China, set up to permanently end the Middle East conflict and drive economic development. This morning, Donald Trump put an exclamation point on that. He posted that a massive number of empty oil tankers were headed to the U.S. to fill up on oil and gas. That was a message about huge economic loss to the Iranian delegation in Islamabad, losses which will continue if they don't negotiate. NATO, the Praetorian Guard of the Great Reset of Klaus Schwab, King Charles, and the City of London, Trump says they're done, over with in one way or another. And last night, the future for...
So that's why I continue to see this war as the principal proxy war for this changed reality, for this changed system, for the end of the World War II consensus, and why I think it's great that Carney got the job he got. It really allows the contrast principle to form people's opinions and persuade and change the conversation around these things. No one is going to see these people as innocent victims, these central bankers. He tried to pull that on Davos. He tried to pull the whole, oh, the power of the powerless and all of this argument. Of course, it sounds completely ridiculous. And so when you look at what Trump is achieving and you look at what's going on with this new fight, this new transition that we're going through, you can see it's almost over. We're almost out. The new systems are becoming obvious and apparent. Canada will be the poster child for losing, for being a failure. And the only risks that I think Trump has left are a little bit of this division on the right that we saw around this Iranian question. But I think Trump is getting over that now. I don't think any of this anti-Israel stuff and the Candace Owens crowd is going to catch on. I think that there's going to be a way to get to peace, because winning is how you create the good chemistry. It's been my main topic since the beginning of the Iranian war, when the vibes were so low and the division was so acute. And I said, Trump is going to pivot back to domestic issues. He's going to run this hot into the midterms. He's going to time this for getting control of the Federal Reserve. He gets one last print with the US dollar. He's going to print it into the future. He's going to print this new system into existence. Bitcoin has to be at the center of it, because some kind of counterforce is needed for the huge print that's coming and the low interest rates that are coming, and a way of creating a public debt in America that's credible, issued from the Treasury. The reinstitution of this Hamiltonian system requires credible public debt on the part of America. They are going to create a bimetallic system. It will run for a generation. It's part of what anchoring the US dollar into the system means. But with low interest rates, they're weaponizing the US dollar to wipe out other central bank fiat Ponzi's around the world, and to stabilize the US dollar so that it separates itself from other fiat bank Ponzi's is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be the counterbalance to and the shock absorber for all of the inflation that will go in with the low interest rates. So very powerful leverage. Now, again, Trump's only weakness that he's got, only a vector that can be used for attack, is domestic political trouble. That's why everything was anchored in the Iranian war to an American audience. That's why all the propaganda from Iran was directed towards America. That's why it's all this Israel question from the beginning. The good news, though, is that, of course, we're already seeing Trump reconsolidate his base. But the troubling signs do show up, right? What we saw with Eric Swalwell this weekend shows just how powerful Democrats really are running their blackmail system. Of course, here we see Eric Swalwell suspending his campaign because of all the videos about the sex tapes and the disrespect towards women and everything came out. But of course, the important story of this whole question around Swalwell is the discipline of Democrats to be able to know this was the case for many years, right? Everyone knew Swalwell was a scumbag, that he was a womanizer and abusive and had a lot of sexual misconduct complaints against him. But again, it feeds into our worldview that the black maleocracy was real. The black maleocracy was what was required to ascend. Here, bro, you should definitely fight those false allegations, especially all the videos of doing weird shit with hookers. Nick Shirley saying, if you aren't fit to run a campaign, what makes you fit to continue on as a congressman? So what you're going to see here is Democrats flexing their discipline because, of course, this was an issue forever, and they decided to engage it now, but it works. They stay together. The Democrats are able to pivot as a group, as a collection, and that's why you end up getting this result. So the blackmail questions have a much larger sway within Republicans. Trump's weakness and the fight amongst MAGA really was about whether or not Trump would stand up to the blackmailers, whether or not he was blackmailing himself. Over on the left, they've shown again they don't care about it, which is why the Democrats don't really matter in this conversation. This does help Democrats, by the way. This having Eric Swalwell drop out is strategically important for Democrats because he was the least likely to be elected, and they do a jungle primary in California, which means that every candidate has the chance to be governor, not by party. So you can get, in this case, the two leading candidates are the ones who end up going for the runoff. It's a little bit like the French primary for president in France. So indeed, they do a first run. Everyone can run for governor or for president of France, and then the top two go on. In this case here, which you were going to see where the two leading candidates were both Republicans, each of them only getting 14% of the vote. And the result of that was all the Democrats were below 13. By removing Swalwell, you take his support and put it with the other Democrat candidates. So at least they can get one candidate. But again, I'm going to go and keep making my prediction that I believe that between the corruption and all this trouble, you will see California turn red. Between the audits, the Nick Shirley stuff, you're going to see it turn red in this campaign. And that is what we all have to look forward to as the debate around the midterm elections goes on and what's going to happen in that case. In a corollary to these questions around the political change in America and what Trump is doing there, I think you're going to finally get some movement on political change when it comes to the court system and the corruption. So it looks like the reinstitution of the full republic might be in the cards. A law like the auditing is going to help fix federal power and federal corruption. Tracking the judges' corruption, I think, is an important question. Just like you had Spamberger here say that victims of gun violence can now sue gun manufacturers if they're negligent in Virginia. Will Tanner saying, yet you can't sue a judge when she lets off a 35 times felon who goes on to stab your daughter to death. Leftist rule is just a narco tyranny. I think we are going to get that kind of conversation, and judge accountability is coming, just like gun manufacturer accountability is coming. Here, I built CourtWatch US, a free public database for American citizens who deserve safer communities. You can track judges released defendants who then get rearrested, skipped court, or violated their release conditions. All public records, all free. I started with Orange County, Florida, and will be expanding to all 67 Florida counties and eventually every state in the country. The first batch of this is from 2024, and the first public reports are released in March/April for the previous year. Data is behind, but I wanted to see if this is plausible. After adding 2024, I'll add 2025 and then figure out how to get the real-time data uploaded. It's in beta. Would love to know what you think. Numbers don't lie, but criminals do. Indeed, here, Judge Teenan, court cases 20, failed to appear 0, new arrests 7, revocations 13. So that is how well this judge has done on recidivism. Measuring recidivism in this way is great. You got a Bitcoiner tagged here, and I know the reason for that because Bitcoiners are at the heart of this reinstitution of the real republic in America and of this World War II consensus getting switched and what we're going to see and where things are headed. So you love to see it indeed. What are folks saying in the chat? And then we're almost at our time for this morning. I will be recording a podcast this afternoon with Brendan Gentili, everyone. I'm pretty sure it'll be available tomorrow. Go check out his podcast. I watched a bit of it with Stefan Molyneux. Stefan Molyneux, kind of a forgotten hero in the Bitcoin world. He was there in Bitcoin prior to the Trump 1 term. He goes back as much as I do as being a Bitcoiner and a Trump supporter. But the Trump thing took him over because he got canceled big time because he was making such an impact. And a lot of the Bitcoin folks, class of 2020, 2021, don't know anything about him because he'd been canceled by then. So I'm glad he's making his comeback into Bitcoin. It's well deserved. So go check out the Brendan Gentili. It's the first time I think a Bitcoiner has interviewed him. I haven't seen anyone else interview him yet in the Bitcoin world. So glad to see he's making Bitcoin focused content with Bitcoiners. A huge respawn here at the end game. They're all coming back. We're going to have a good time as we run this thing hot into the golden age. We're almost there, everybody. Here, noticing intensifies, said CB Van. Indeed. We get the good news about Hungary, says Lance 2002. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Brilliant idea, fuck nuts. That's I think you're talking to CB Van, the exit tax for Canadians. It's one of the stupidest ideas I've ever seen. It literally can't work. Why are Americans going to follow an order from our parliament? And they're like, well, we're going to get rid of the free trade deal. Yeah, that's getting rid of it's gone anyway. So wait until you see what Trump does to this human capital and what he does to attract it. No people in the world integrate into American society better than conservative Canadians. They're as based as right wingers in blue states, and even more so in some cases. So I have no patience for Canadians who go to America and fight for libtard Canadian shit lib stuff. So they should be banned. You should just straight up look into their social media history and say, if you're a shit libber, get the fuck out. But that's what I see happening. All right, folks. That's all I got for today. Let me just tell my producers I'm about to cut the broadcast to get ready for the next show. Let me see who's on the show this afternoon. The Bitcoin report with the state of Bitcoin markets with Borja and Luca. We got Gareth Jenkins, of course. We got D. Jant. That should be interesting. After this afternoon, you've got Fernando, who I've done some content with, the guy at Base Layer, the Argentine fella. So lots of good shows coming up here on Roxham. So stick around, everybody. We are ready to cut. Peace out, folks. Ready to wrap, indeed. Peace out, everyone. See you later. You'll see the logo, the thanks for watching screen. I just want to tell you, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow morning. Peace.